I think we need to have a little review of how we got here. In the Mike Harris or Eves era, they broke up Ontario Hydro, split it up into 5 corporations that are basically overseeing a whole bunch of private contracts. So a whole bunch of more CEOs, a whole bunch of more expenses, and then guaranteed profits. The first industrial wind turbines in Ontario actually went up under the Conservative government. The Green Energy Act actually only expands that program began, the privatization program began by the Conservatives. So that's the background of how we got here. In 2003, I ran in a provincial election specifically because Howard Hampton, the leader of the NDP at that time, asked me because of my background in energy issues. I predicted the kind of rising costs that we've seen because under Ernie Eves and Mike Harris, we started down this privatizing road, and the Liberals have expanded it massively under a greenwashing agenda. It's really about private power. It's really about providing money to their big friends in industry and in big energy companies. You know, and I don't mean this in any kind of partisan way, it takes an incredible level and mix of incompetence and arrogance to mess up something so innately positive as renewable energy. And yet that's what we have. We've set up a system where neighbor is pitted against neighbor, where companies go around and even to discuss them you have to sign gag orders.
So this shows some of the hypocrisy of when we practice industrial wind on the scale that we're doing it. Because not only is there the coal, but of course we're not replacing coal with clean, green industrial wind. We're replacing it with natural gas. Because a source like wind has to be paired with another source, and the plan is to pair it with gas. And so 2 questions is where does the gas come from, and what does that mean for CO2 emissions? Of course, the reason there's not quite as much smog anymore is because the industrial heartland of the United States has been decimated, and that's where a lot of that smog was traveling into our province. That natural gas is going to be used much more frequently, and it's actually going to knock things like nuclear offline because of the guaranteed payments in the contracts that we have to take that energy. And here's where that gas is coming from. It's called shale fracking. So what they do is they take water, they mix it with a lot of toxic chemicals, and they just blast it into the shale bedrock, and that releases the gas. And in places in the United States where this has gone on, you actually see a massive water pollution. People can actually light their water on fire. You know, we're saving the environment apparently when we're doing all of this, but when we're damaging and potentially doing things with water. And here's the scary thing. Those shale deposits in Ontario are all in the Great Lakes Basin. We're just moving in the wrong direction when we're on this industrial scale.
It's a dangerous, dangerous thing to be doing at this level. And so that's why, as an environmentalist, as someone who has a track record, a very long track record and public track record, as an environmentalist, I oppose this industrial model scale.
Our family had the experience, my extended family, of these companies going around door to door. They picked my wife's family because they had been long-standing environmentalists, have been involved in the community. They just won Senior Citizens of the Year last year. And what this company did was go door to door and say, yep, Alan and Bev have signed on. And so a lot of people in that community said, well, if it's good enough for Alan and Bev, it's good enough for me. When in fact the company had never once in any way ever communicated it at all with that family. So that's the kind of practices that we've handed over the keys to rural Ontario with, and it's just wrong. And I just want to address the 40 decibel issues. The Ministry of Health, or the Ministry of the Environment workers there have clearly stated that they can't measure that development. They can't determine whether those settings are being met. And when you have something like that's happening, that means that people and communities are getting shoved to the side. Part of the reason that of how we got to that 550 meters, I think we should just review that for a second, was based on computer models around the noise level that comes off of a turbine. And what they came up with was acceptable noise limit was 40 decibels, and so if you work that out, that works out to 550 meters. Well, here's the thing. There is a body of evidence around that. It comes from the Ministry of Environment employees themselves, who said, A, they couldn't monitor it, and B, the computer models are probably skewed because it doesn't consider what the ambient noise level is in rural communities. So again, let's start bringing, they suggest in their memos that has to come down, which means that the setback has to be further, because that's how it works. So when you correct for the computer model, it comes down to about 36, 37 decibels. When you correct for the ambient noise difference in a rural setting as opposed to an urban or suburban setting, that starts to bring it down as well. So you're down to about 34, 35 in that memo. And then they're talking about the way noise travels in an open area like a rural countryside. So again, you're down to about 30 decibels. And so when you look at the ministry itself, the employees in the ministry themselves, they're saying that our setbacks are adequate, that they're not doing what is proposed needed to be done. And so again, that's why in the NDP we're talking about changing that system.
There is a place for renewable energy in an appropriate scale, and we're diverse. But this industrial system that we've set up it's the wrong way to go. When it's in a privatized world, it means that we pay for people to take our power away rather than flipping it on the time when it might actually be worth. And I also want to address the FIT program. We're going to hear a promise to cancel FIT. Well, various forms of FIT have been around for a very long time. Every energy generator in this province is on some kind of contract that resembles FIT. So a promise to get rid of it is misleading, because the very next day you've got to have something. You've got to have something because it covers nuclear, it covers hydro generation, it covers coal generation, it covers places in the north where they put their power into their mill, but any excess goes to electricity. So you have to have some kind of system, but we have to make it much more fair, we have to make it much more open, and we have to get away from this privatized industrial wind system that is destroying people and it's making people ill. I hear time and time again from people that are on the sort of extreme side of supporting industrial wind at any cost, that there are no health effects. Well, I've talked to Dr. Hazel Lynn, talked to lots of other people around the world, and I liken it this way. How many people here have allergies? Does anybody here have allergies? If you were near, so not everybody does, right? Only some people are affected in certain ways by certain allergens. But if you were living near a wind turbine and you were having that health effect, the government would tell you it's all in your mind. We need to get serious about how we monitor those systems and return back, again, community control, so we can have a right to say what's happening in our own communities. I think moving into the future, if we had decentralized, if we had had a smaller scale that people could buy in, even just putting a solar panel on your roof, taking off your hot water heater offline, those are ways that could save you money. So what we've said is that, one, we have to return community control so that communities can have a say over how renewable energy is developed, the size of projects, or even if they take place at all.
And that's why our approach is different. I'll admit, our approach is different than what some of the wind groups are talking about and what some of the other campaigns are talking about. But I believe, as someone who's been involved in this issue from the get-go, talking about the loss of community control, that the only way to really fix it, because it'll just be back. This issue is not going to go away. It'll be back in some other form. The only way to really to really fix it and change it so that we get rid of the industrial model altogether is to change that system, and that's why we've been talking about that.